Hello friendos and bendos, it's me Z, and it has officially been 1 year since DC's Absolute Universe began in October of 2024 with the DC All-In Special. In that 1 year, we've had 6 different comic series and 2 special one-shots, and that is a lot to catch up on if you haven't been keeping up with everything. So here's a recap of an entire year of Absolute. I'll be going over each series individually and then end off on the newly released Absolute Evil one-shot special issue, which is the issue that'll be setting up the next year of Absolute storytelling. And if you're not reading all of the Absolute Universe books, I just gotta say that I sincerely recommend all of them. Alright, they've been on my mind constantly, that's why I'm making this video, because I'm such a big fan. But anyway, let's go on. So, first to recap, what is the Absolute Universe? Well, the Absolute Universe was made when Darkseid, big bad of DC Comics, god of tyranny and comfortable couches, fused with the newly forming universe known as the Alpha Universe, or the Elseworld, and he did this so he could mold it in his perspective of despair, and gain power from the entire universe built on his energy. Because of this, the Absolute Universe is much harsher to heroes, with the ones we know and love having fundamental aspects changed about them to make their lives harder. Meanwhile, the villains have all the advantages. This is a universe where hope has to burn brighter than ever in order to survive. Now, to get into the specific books, let's start with Absolute Batman by Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta stars a Bruce Wayne who grew up in a working-class home, his father Thomas a teacher and his mother Martha a social worker. He had tons of friends including Edward Nygma, Waylon Jones, Harvey Dent, Oswald Cobblepot, and Selina Kyle, who in the main universe you may know as Riddler, Killer Croc, Two-Face, Penguin, and Catwoman. Bruce was a smart kid and designed a bridge for a contest that won his class a trip to the zoo, but that's when tragedy struck, as the zoo was attacked by a shooter, and Thomas Wayne died in the shooting, forever changing the trajectory of Bruce's life. Bruce grew up to use every resource he had to get into college, learn as much as he could in classes and combat, in order to come back to Gotham and stop the criminal element of his city, becoming a symbol of justice, the Batman. Absolute Batman, due to his lack of riches, has to be a lot more resourceful and brutal with his tactics and technology. Nevertheless, he's still a powerful one-man army. Absolute Batman's first arc centers around the villain Black Mask, who comes to Gotham to wreak havoc with his gang, the Party Animals. In the fight to stop Black Mask, Batman meets Absolute Alfred, an MI6 operative assigned on the case, who was previously on the tail of Black Mask's elusive and mysterious boss, and head of JK Industries, the Joker, who in this universe is a billionaire who's trained all of the world, similar to mainline Batman. In the fight to beat Black Mask, Bruce also ends up having to tell his friends that he's the Batman, and while they're angry at him for keeping the secret, they aid him in defeating Black Mask's reign of terror. After suffering this harsh defeat, the Joker decides to nip the Batman problem in the bud by sending in one of his top officers, the absolute version of Bane. Batman, meanwhile, now with Black Mask's brutality behind him, sets his sights on what Black Mask was really in Gotham for, heralding the building of Ark-M, a black site prison facility ran by JK Industries, and the 13th such facility on the planet. The contents within these facilities, no one knows. Trying to get into Ark-M, Bruce asks his old childhood friend Matches Malone for some help, only for Matches to end up dying after investigating Ark-M himself. One of the clues he finds in Matches' records of the facility leads Bruce to Victor Freeze Jr., owner of V-Corps, and the absolute Mr. Freeze, who completely overwhelms Bruce and forces him to retreat with an army of cryogenically frozen zombies. Meanwhile, Bruce's friend Waylon is captured by Ark-M after they use snow of Mr. Freeze's design to track and document the citizens of Gotham. Bruce, finding out Waylon's disappeared, decides to sneak into Ark-M as Batman, only to be found and easily beaten by Bane. Ark-M, as it turns out, is a facility for human experimentation, filled with people in agony and suffering as inhuman tests are done on them that warp their bodies and minds. Ark-M's plan is to turn Bruce into the next Bane, and manages to infuse him with Venom, the substance that allows Bane his incredible smarts and strength. After several failed escape attempts, Bruce finally is able to fully escape when he finds Waylon, who has been transformed into the monstrous Killer Croc. Knowing that in order to truly make Batman the next key operative of the Joker, he needs to be broken, Bane decides to go into the city and brutalize Eddie, Harvey, and Oswald, breaking them into people more similar to their mainline counterparts, because if torturing Bruce wasn't enough to make him break, torturing his friends surely will. Upon escaping Ark-M, but losing Waylon, Bruce comes back to Gotham to find out the fate of his friends, and is thrown into the pits of despair, with all seeming lost, until Selina Kyle, Bruce's old love, the absolute Catwoman, appears on the scene. And that is the plot so far of Absolute Batman. There are a few missed details as this is a summary of the key moments, such as the subplot of former mayor and family friend of Bruce, James Gordon, trying to help Martha run for mayor, but overall you should now be up to speed. I am, however, going to take a moment to talk about all the Absolute versions of DC characters and concepts that this book introduces, but I couldn't find a clean way to fit into the summary. Absolute Barbara Gordon, a police officer and daughter of James Gordon, Absolute Harvey Bullock, chief of police, Absolute Bilbo Bowski, a pro fighter, Absolute Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, an old friend of Alfred who appears to be the Joker's bodyguard. He went through a similar process to Bane, though it didn't fully take to it. Likewise did the Absolute version of KG Beast, another Joker operative, Absolute Dick Grayson, a hospital worker, the Absolute Red Hood Gang, seemingly a rebel organization that Batman has ties to, and finally there's Dr. Arkham, the woman who runs Arkham. The facility itself including many references, including the clay biome, a mass of people fused together, the Isley ecosystem, a mass of people seemingly fused together with plant life, and the Langstrom experiment, a bunch of mutated individuals. And it looks like all are related to Absolute versions of Clayface, Poison Ivy, aka Pamela Isley, and Man-Bat, aka Kirk Langstrom. We saw Isley and Langstrom in the list of doctors connected to the arcs and Matches Malone's video. We're assumedly going to learn more about all these three with the upcoming Arkham special issue, releasing in December. Now, on to the next book. In Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman, we learn that as a punishment for supposed crimes against the gods, the Amazons of Themyscira have been made eternal servants and prisoners of Zeus, and the princess of the Amazons, the baby Diana, has been taken from them. Diana is given to Circe to be raised on her island prison in literal hell itself. While originally not enthused by the idea, eventually Diana melts the witch's cold heart, and they truly become mother and daughter. The goddesses who helped create the Amazons and Diana, behind Zeus's back, eventually come to Circe in secret, in order to enlist Diana to become a hero and defend both humanity and the planet from the universe's lean towards despair. Diana then trains with Circe and the goddesses to become a great witch and warrior, great enough to even temporarily free Prometheus, who gives her the original Pegasus, raised from the dead. Eventually, Diana meets Steve Trevor, a US Army officer, who washes up on the shore of her island home. Sacrificing her arm to send him back to the world of the living, Diana eventually goes there herself, though not before getting herself a new magic arm. In the world of the living, specifically Gateway City, Diana is met with several challenges, first being the Harbinger and its flying pterodactyl-like minions, which she defeats with the Nemesis Lasso, a lasso that inflicts pain on you based on the amount of pain you have inflicted to others. The next challenge being the Tetracide, the monster the Harbinger was, well, harbinging, a being with a scream that causes people to willingly jump in its maw. Diana, though, thankfully, also meets some allies, including meeting up back with Steve, as well as his friends, Etta Candy, and her sister and practicing witch, Gia, as well as the mythological historian, Barbara Ann Minerva. Gia, in particular, helps Diana with her herbs, and Diana uses it to grow back her arm after its magic is dispelled. Diana manages to defeat the Tetracide using a combination of magic that deafens the entire city and the Lasso of Sacrifice, which allows its user to transform into other beings, at the risk of losing your mind into the mind of what you're transforming into, a risk she's able to fight off thanks to the words of Steve Trevor. Sometimes victories come with unknown costs, and Diana's victory leads to her becoming incredibly famous, catching the attention of the US government and National Security Advisor Veronica Cale, who views Diana as a threat. Diana then gets dragged back to hell by Hades himself, who puts Diana through a fight to the death and gives her a choice of two random doors, one killing her and permanently trapping her in hell, and the other freeing her, at the cost of her never being able to visit hell and her mother until she dies. With the help of her mother, Diana is able to choose a door that leads to the second outcome, at which point we find out that Persephone gave Diana one of the underworld's magic pomegranate seeds when she was a child, meaning Diana can still visit her mother once every year. After saying goodbye to her mother one last time, Diana comes back to the land of the living and builds the giant temple known as the Huron, which she will now operate out of. Veronica Cale, meanwhile, is in Area 41, a vast government complex she's in charge of, designed to imprison all things strange and supernatural. Veronica asks one of her prisoners/employees, Dr. Poison, to develop a weapon using the powerful sonic scream of the Tetracide, which Poison then uses to lure Diana into the open by attacking Gateway City. There she tells Diana that an Amazon is trapped in Area 41, specifically the complex's vast underground maze. Diana, of course, has to go there and see if this is true or just a trap, and so she creates a portal into it. There she finds the ruler of the maze, Queen Clea, an Atlantean, not an Amazon. Not only that, but also a cruel despot who sees power to make the maze her own kingdom, with a bunch of fishmen as minions. Diana makes friends in the maze though, Ferdinand the Minotaur and the silent siren Petra, who Clea is chasing. When Ferdinand is captured by Cleo while trying to protect Diana and Petra, Diana goes to rescue him, only to be thrown into the pit, the deepest part of the maze, and there she finds who she came for, Io, the first Amazon Diana has ever met, a member of the people Diana had thought was completely lost to her. Diana is able to use her magic to completely evacuate the maze into the Huron, and then fights Cleo using an ancient weapon hidden in the pit that Cleo is using a portion of, the Trident of Poseidon. Managing to completely flood the maze, Diana gives Cleo the choice of either continuing the fight or escaping and finding redemption for her actions in the world outside. Cleo chooses the latter, and her, Diana, and the fisherman escape the maze. When Diana returns to the Huron, she's distressed to find Io gone. She was zapped away in a bolt of lightning the second she stepped out of the maze. Thankfully, Diana gets a sign from the goddesses that Io is still alive. We as the reader find out that Io has been transported back to Themyscira, where she's able to inform Queen Hippolyta and all the Amazons that the princess is still alive. Veronica Cale, on the other hand, in Area 41, is completely pissed at the destruction of the maze, going to Section SS1 seeking the help of a powerful prisoner who can finally take down the Wonder Woman, Absolute Zatanna. Okay, so now that I'm done with that summary, similarly to my Absolute Batman summary, I'm using this part of the summary to highlight, wow, I said summary 3 times in a fucking row, okay. I'm gonna highlight all the characters who appeared but I couldn't fit in. So, Apollo, Hecate, and Artemis, as well as the prisoners that showed up trapped in Area 41 at the end of the most recent issue of time of recording. The only ones we can confirm from what we see are Absolute Kuka and Absolute Giganta, and seemingly some form of Absolute Cheetah, though not the Barbara Ann Minerva version, as we already have her in this book, and she's very much not a cheetah, at least not yet. The other prisoners are too obscure for me to say definitively who they are, as it's a recap video, not a speculation one, though I have my theories. Absolute Superman by Jason Aaron and Rafa Sandoval follows a version of Kal-El who grew up as a child on Krypton, he and his parents on the bottom level of this universe's Krypton severe caste system. Krypton becomes unstable due to uncontrolled stripping of its resources, so much so that it's about to explode. Kal's parents find this out, but their efforts to inform the public are suppressed. Fortunately, they're still able to create an escape ship that they use to evacuate their town. Unfortunately, the exploding planet obliterates the ship as it tries to leave orbit, leaving Kal as the only survivor in an escape pod. Kal is left drifting in space for over a year, his only companion the ship's sentient AI Soul. He ends up crash landing on Earth, where the ship forms into a suit for Kal to help process the Sun's energy. Specifically, he crashes in the town of Smallville, Kansas, on the farm of Absolute Jonathan and Martha Kent, who give Kal a place to stay and treat him like one of their own, and he repays them in turn by helping out around the farm and secretly in Smallville. It's sad then that Kal ends up being reported by someone who witnesses him on the farm and thinks he's an illegal immigrant. That's when Lazarus Corp comes in, one of the wealthiest corporations in the world, run by none other than the secret immortal Absolute Ra's al Ghul. Lazarus has its own private military force, the Peacemakers, and they send a whole platoon of them to arrest Kal, who is forced to flee the scene, never seeing the Kents again. Kal is left to wander Earth, seeing injustice everywhere he goes on this planet on the path to becoming a place of desperation and inequality just like Krypton. He helps people where he can, on farms, in mines, fighting Lazarus when they appear, honing his new abilities, and using Soul's many special properties, including forming a cape of crystal he uses as his own fortress of solitude, in case he ever needs to think. Eventually, Kal ends up in Brazil, and helps a mining town, catching the attention of a squad of peacemakers who try to take him down. He accidentally gets handcuffed to one of the peacemakers, Absolute Lois Lane, who starts realizing that maybe there's more to this so-called Superman than what appears at first glance. Meanwhile, another peacemaker, Absolute Christopher Smith, has the opposite reaction to encountering Superman, and starts to slowly lose his mind after encountering a being of such power. This catches the attention of Lazarus' computer system manager, Absolute Brainiac, a biomechanical alien being working directly for Ra's al Ghul, who sees Smith as a test subject to use for further ends. Brainiac uses his connection to the universe's other Brainiac intelligences to discover Superman's origin planet of Krypton, and synthesizes the irradiated remains of the planet for use as a weapon, to use alongside Christopher Smith, who he crafts into a metal cyborg. Kal eventually goes back to Kansas, feeling the weight of this new world once again. There he meets Lois, who has been searching all over the world for where he might appear next, and landed on Smallville as the place he's most emotionally attached to. There he also meets Agent Alpha, aka Jimmy Olsen, a low-ranking member of the Omega Men, a rebel group against Lazarus. Trusting neither of them, Clark is forced to pick a side when peacemakers including Smith arrive on the scene, and Smith mortally wounds Cal with a kryptonite bullet. Clark goes with the Omega Men, while Lois is detained for her disobedience. The Omega Men heal Cal using a father box, and he joins their cause, making friends with Jimmy and butting heads with the Omega Men leader Primus, who views Cal as too soft for his refusal to kill. On a mission, Jimmy is kidnapped by the Peacemakers, only to find out that Lois is his interrogator, who was assigned by Roz personally to track down Superman in exchange for her father's life. But Lois has no plans of betraying Superman after seeing time and time again his good nature and effects. On an attack on the Lazarus Arctic base where Jimmy is being detained, Cal fights Smith one last time, before encountering Ra's al Ghul for the first time and learning that Roz wants to make Cal his finest soldier, his son of the demon. To do this though, Cal needs to be ruthless, and to show this, Roz kills Smith himself, showing Cal that his mercy is futile. Then, Cal gets stabbed in the back with a kryptonite blade by none other than Primus, who reveals herself to be Absolute Talia al Ghul, and the Omega Man was a false flag operation to lure in those who would rise against Lazarus to their demise. Cal is then captured by the Al Ghuls, who make Brainiac torture him until he breaks. Meanwhile, Lois and Jimmy escape their prisons with the help of Sam Lane, Lois's dad, who ends up dying to get them to Superman. Just as Cal is about to succumb to Brainiac's influence, Sol manages to bust him, Lois, and Jimmy out of the base and fly them back to Kansas to recuperate. Unfortunately though, Roz has had enough and decides to send an entire army of peacemakers to wipe Kansas off the map. And that's where Absolute Superman is so far. And I should briefly mention that we also meet Absolute Lana Lang, who's a diner waitress in this version. Now moving on to the next book we have Absolute Flash by Jeff Lemire and Nick Robles, along with the other books I'll be talking about after this point, were released in the second wave of the Absolute Universe in March 2025, meaning they've all just completed their first arcs, so potentially shorter summaries for all, but that doesn't mean they're not still jam-packed. Absolute Flash follows Wally West, a moody, anxious teenager without any friends or real true home, because his dad Rudy is constantly having him travel for military business. To add insult to injury, his mother is also dead, so Wally's life isn't great. Thankfully though, he knows Barry Allen, a researcher at Fort Fox on their Project Olympus, where Wally's dad is currently stationed at, and Barry seems pretty cool. He's so cool that he invites Wally into his lab where he can see what he's working on, though that's interrupted by Wally's dad, who's pissed at both, Wally for being there and Barry letting him into someplace so dangerous. Later that day, after getting into another argument with his dad, Wally runs off to Barry's lab again, only this time he finds Barry in the middle of an experiment, at which point everything goes wrong, as Wally is caught up in and seemingly disintegrated by a storm of energy. Only he isn't. Wally is alive and able to reconstitute himself into a human form. However, still unable to control what's happened to him, he blasts Barry with a bolt of energy and runs away at super speed, not realizing until he's too late that he's been dragging Barry behind him so fast that he's dying. Wally decides that he needs to run away for good after killing Barry and fucking everything up, and that's when his father and the head of Project Olympus, Eleanor Thawne, get involved to try to track him down. Though for different reasons, Rudy because he wants his son back, Eleanor because she sees Wally as a prime asset, especially after the accident also caused the escape of numerous test subjects. Rudy and Eleanor employ the help of the Absolute Rogues to track Wally, specifically the Absolute versions of Captain Cold, his sister Golden Glider, Captain Boomerang, and the Trickster, all of them disgraced former operatives who were given Project Olympus technology and government weapons in exchange for their continued freedom. Along with them is sent Grodd, a monkey Project Olympus test subject with psychic powers. Unfortunately for the Rogues, Wally is just too fast and escapes, taking Grodd with him as they form a psychic bond. They stop briefly in the town of Iron Heights for food and shelter, where they meet another runaway, Linda Park, who in the main universe is Wally's wife. They also meet Ralph Dibny, who runs the youth shelter they stay at. In the main universe, he becomes the Elongated Man. While in Iron Heights, Wally encounters one of the escaped experiments, Absolute Heatwave, a giant molten monster. Wally manages to defeat him, but in doing so, again gets the government and Project Olympus on his tail, going on the run once more. When he immediately runs into another experiment, this time Absolute Weather Wizard, who he is able to defeat. He also runs into the Rogues again, who tell him they're sick of working for Eleanor as her lapdogs and want to join Wally on the run. Meanwhile, Rudy realizes he and Eleanor are just not on the same page, especially when he stumbles upon tubes filled with strange creatures, which Eleanor says are their predecessors, who found God. That is the plot of Absolute Flash so far, but there's a lot more that I couldn't fit into the summary that I want to talk about. One thing is the aspect that Wally keeps occasionally seeing into the past and the future, with the future visions giving him two possibilities, one future where he's a hero and one where he's a monster. Next thing I want to talk about is a flashback we get in issue 6, where we see Jay Garrick and a man named Thawne in the 40s, working on an experiment similar to the one Barry was working on before, and Thawne pushes Jay into the storm when he tries to stop it. Finally is the teases for future characters. In the Lab of Shattered Glass Containment Units, we see signs with the names of experiments of Project Olympus, along with Heatwave and Weather Wizard, who we've now met, are assigned for Project Firestorm, teasing his debut in the Absolute Universe, and a mysterious project with all the letters blotted out by X's. All these make Flash probably the Absolute book with the biggest mysteries about what's going on right now. It's just started but is already setting up a lot, and I'm super intrigued to see where everything is going. Oh, also, for a brief bit in issue 1, we meet Absolute Mirror Master, but we'll talk about him later. Absolute Martian Manhunter by Dennis Camp and Javier Rodriguez follows workaholic FBI agent John Jones, who in a suicide bombing gets his consciousness fused with a psychic being from another plane of reality, so far away and incomprehensible that the best word to describe it is simply Martian. The Martian gives John the ability to read other people's thoughts and memories, breathing them in as a type of smoke, and he uses them to solve crimes and anomalies around the city, being caused by another psychic being of chaos and evil, called the White Martian. The first arc ends with a final confrontation between the Martian and White Martian that leads to John having to tell his wife about what's been going on, and his son's accidental death and secret possession by the White Martian. This book is also our first glimpse at Darkseid within the pages of an Absolute book, as the Martian briefly is able to see him spewing bad, harmful ideas into existence beyond the veil of reality. And that's really it when it comes to significant plot details. Absolute Martian Manhunter is honestly a book you have to experience, and I don't want to have to go into any detail I don't need to because just telling you them isn't going to do them justice. Just read it, it's really damn good, probably my favorite Absolute book. As to Absolute versions of characters I didn't mention in the summary, the Suicide Bomber is revealed to be the Absolute Human Flame, and there's a reference to Madame Xanadu on a sign, which is pretty neat. Absolute Green Lantern by Al Ewing and Janoy Lindsay is right next to Absolute Martian Mindfucker as one of the craziest series in the lineup when it comes to changing up the mythos. Because of this, I'm actually going to start out by explaining the power system established by the book, which, to be honest, could be its own video deep dive. So, in the regular universe, Green Lantern lore, you have the emotional spectrum, 7 colors connected to 7 emotions that if you can sufficiently tap into, you get amazing powers and can make constructs and all of that nice stuff. I want you to throw all of that out of your mind in Absolute Green Lantern. We are not playing by those rules at all. The power system of Absolute Green Lantern is more of a philosophical spectrum, with 4 colors at 4 levels representing 4 forms of thought. The bottom level is black, known as Quord. This is the level of reckless action, pure instinct. On this level, might makes right, and you don't need to take any form of morality or system into account, aside from what you want and when you want it. The second level is red, known as Ral. This is the level of restraint, carefulness. On this level, your priority in a situation isn't immediate action, it's to take things into consideration. The third level is green, known as Sir. This is the level of correct action, to do something with confidence that is the right thing to do based on morals and rationality. The fourth and final level is gold, known as R, the level of total understanding, enlightenment, true wisdom in all things, not just actions. To be a master of a level of light is to be an Abin, so a master of the green level of light is an Abin Soar, for example. To be a recruit/initiate of an Abin is to be an Ion, so an initiate of the green level is an Ion Soar. To be an anomaly who gained the power of a level of light without proper understanding or initiation is to be a Tomar, so someone with the power of the green level who got the power on accident is Tomar Soar. Now, while normally the path is from Quord at the bottom to R at the top, there's an intergalactic group called the Black Stars, or the Weaponers of Quord, and they take the place of where the Green Lanterns in the main universe would be as the Universal Police. The Black Stars view the path as Or being the lowest level and Quord being the highest. Their will is above all, and they eliminate any beings who go against their philosophy. The main Black Star planet of operation is also the sentient planet of Absolute Mogo. The Owens, on the other hand, are people who view the spectrum as quarters the lowest, and they are all called Owens because they have a direct connection to all parts of the spectrum through a realm called Oa, or Omega Alpha, which can also be accessed physically through special, essentially spaceships, called Green Lanterns, and the Owens are trying to form a resistance against the Black Stars. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about the story of Absolute Green Lantern. The book so far centered on the town of Evergreen, and our main characters who live there. These are the Absolute versions of Hal Jordan, a toy salesman, John Stewart, an architect, and Joe Mullane, an ex-cop who moved back to Evergreen after her divorce. Evergreen gets covered in a dome as a Green Lantern appears above, and an Abensor teleports people to Oa in blasts of light so they can be judged and initiated into the fight. But the Abensor never explains this properly and causes tons of panic that ends with Joe accidentally absorbing his power into her gold wedding ring and becoming a Tamar Sor, and Hal killing the Abin because he thought he killed everyone else and getting cursed with the Black Hand, making him a Tamar Cord. The lantern then drops out of the sky and destroys the town, though thankfully there's only one person left in it, Absolute Todd Rice, who survives. This garners the attention of billionaire Hector Hammond, who wants to analyze the lantern for use in his schemes. Meanwhile, Joe and Hal fight for a bit, not fully in control of their powers, before getting led to Oa by the lantern, which has been reactivated by John Stewart, who has become an INR. Then they exit the lantern after Joe is seemingly able to remove the Black Hand from Hal, not wanting to do anything with all the alien bullshit, and visits her FBI agent ex-wife, Absolute Cameron Chase, for help. Meanwhile, the lantern relocates on the moon, waiting for Mogo to come to Earth, now that the war has been brought there. That's the bare-bones plot of Absolute Green Lantern, but as always I want to mention the Absolute versions of characters who didn't fit in the summary. We've also met Absolute Guy Gardner, an Evergreen police officer, friend of Joe's, who's seemingly also going to become an Ayn Rao, Absolute Simon Baz, another FBI agent. Characters I've mentioned an Absolute Abigail Cable, who in the main universe is the love interest of Swamp Thing. We've also met Absolute Johnny Double, Cameron's boss, Absolute Kilowog, a Black Star, Absolute Gallius Zed, another Black Star, Absolute Oricia, an Abensor, Absolute Karina, an Abensor, Absolute Medfill, an Abensor, Absolute Tamar Ray, who in this one is an actual Tamar, this time of the red level, Absolute Sinestro, leader of the Black Stars, and the only Abin R in the universe, and finally, a figure referencing Blue Devil, who in this universe seemingly only ever remained a fictional character. Okay, phew, that was a lot. Moving on to the last portion. Finally, I want to talk about the Absolute Evil Special, which was just released. This book sees a meeting between all the main Earth-based villains of the Absolute Universe: the Joker, Veronica Cale, Ra's al Ghul, Elnor Thawne, and Hector Hammond. They decide to form a team, the Absolute Justice League, in response to the growing number of superpowered individuals stopping their operations. Along with them is Absolute Hawkman, who in this issue kills Absolute Oliver Queen, which makes me really want to speculate on who the announced Absolute Green Hour book is going to really be about. In this issue, we also see Brainiac is working with Mirror Master, who in the Free Comic Book Day special earlier this year was revealed to be watching all the goings-on in the world and compiling information about the heroes and the villains. In that issue, he also meets the main universe version of Mirror Master, who visits the Absolute world and they swap information. This knowledge Mirror Master shares with Brainiac, which gives him the idea of introducing one more member to the newly formed Justice League, Absolute Lex Luthor. And he seems to be a somewhat chill dude, for now. And that, friendos and bendos, is it for the recap of the Absolute Universe. It seems in the coming year, we'll see the Absolute villains working together, and hopefully see more of Hawkman, Lex, and whatever Absolute Green Arrow is going to be about. I also want to mention that the main DC universe right now is being invaded by the Absolute Legion of Superheroes, who are Darkseid's army. This so far has had no impact on the Absolute Universe side of things, so that's why I'm mentioning it at the end of the video, but you never know. The Absolute Legion is all evil, by the way, because the actions of the Absolute heroes seemingly never inspire those in the future the way the main universe heroes did, getting lost to time, further arcing the world into despair, which I think is a pretty neat twist. Anyway, that's been it for me, Z. This was a long video, and really one that took a bit of effort to put out, because I had to get it out really quick, almost immediately after Absolute Evil came out. I had to rush this video, so I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the Justice Hall. In the Hall of fucking Justice. Why did I say Justice Hall? Cut the video. Cut the video.